Welcome back, Hear Me Out Sports. So we are back from a little bit of a hiatus there. We had the Thanksgiving break, and we are also restructuring our podcast, which is a little bit exciting. We're branching out from just doing all those fantasy football start and sit videos, and we want to cover more of the NFL, some news, some rumors, give our opinions on what's going on in the league, especially as it gets more towards the exciting time of the playoffs and, of course, the championships, both NFC, AFC, and the Super Bowl itself. So without further ado, let's run it. All right, so we are kicking it off here. We are going to still cover every game and kind of highlight each person who we think you should start or consider starting within your leagues. So we are going to jump to the first game, which is Thursday Night Football. We got San Francisco 49ers versus the Seattle Seahawks. Kyle, what's your opinion on this game? What do you see on both sides of the ball?
Okay, I see, first of all, Seattle has seen their strength this entire season through the run game. When they run the ball effectively, their team's effective. San Francisco, obviously a dominant defense. I don't think the quarterback even matters in that offense this year. The defense runs their team. So I think San Francisco, honestly, is going to shut down Seattle's run game first and foremost, specifically because Kenneth Walker still hobbled, still injured. We don't even know if he's going to play yet. Travis Homer, barely know her, right? We don't even know if he's going to be starting over Kenneth Walker this week, which isn't good news. Seattle just lost a pretty important game against Carolina as far as playoff race is concerned for them. So I don't expect a lot from Seattle, even though it's at home. I think San Francisco wins pretty easily, but I don't think Brock Purdy's going to have a great game, but I don't think he's going to have a bad game. I think he's just going to game manage, and I got San Francisco winning pretty easily, honestly. Jace, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so for me, I kind of agree with you in the sense that you have a good San Francisco defense. I'm going to add on top of that Geno Smith, I think, is a poor decision maker. I think that he's had little bits of little flashes of glory through the season, but especially early on in the season, you saw a lot of his just rookie mistakes. I guess I know he's not a rookie, but he was flinging the ball up and just making terrible decisions there.
No,
and
that's a bad take. Wrong. Geno Smith has been
that's hurting him.
No, Geno Smith has been a good decision maker overall. I think he only has like 4 or 5 interceptions on the entire year, and 2 of them were against Carolina, and both of them were because of the coverage. Like, it wasn't a bad throw or a bad decision by Geno. It was a great play by the cornerback. So Geno's not been bad with his decisions. He's just not going to win you any games with his arm. He's just going to keep you in the game because he's not going to turn the ball over. But I don't think that's going to be enough against the San Francisco defense.
Yeah, and I still think he has a way to go, though, as far as his decision-making skills go. On the other end of the ball, obviously a quarterback being hurt kind of puts you back, so you got Purdy in there. And that could lower down the fantasy opportunity for some of those other guys, but I think that they have so many threats that I don't see them losing this game. So I also have San Francisco winning. Now, I'll quickly ask you got any guys you want to start in this matchup?
So obviously Christian McCaffrey, he's who we thought he would be, and he has been kind of all season. But since coming to San Francisco, even though some of the other running backs have been getting 10-plus carries each of the games that McCaffrey's played, it doesn't matter. The last 2 games, McCaffrey went for over 130 total yards and a score, at least one score in both those games. He looks awesome. I think it's just going to continue with a young rookie quarterback in Brock Purdy, who's got a noodle arm. So, again, I think McCaffrey obviously is a must-start, but I'm also starting Brandon Ayuk. The Seattle secondary is not great, and since Deebo Samuel's going to be out with high ankle sprains for sure for this game, I think Ayuk obviously is going to get a bump in value. You may, if you're desperate, you could start Juwan Johnson as well. He's been okay filling in when the Niners have injuries in the wide receiving core. So Juwan Johnson might be a speculative add as well. But I'm not starting anyone in Seattle offense. I know DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are kind of must starts. If you have them on your team, I doubt you have better options. But if you got a close option, I'd probably start those guys because of San Francisco's defense.
Yeah, I don't really want to highlight too many people on Seattle's team. I think that they're too variable. You got some games where it's all Tyler Lockett. You got some games where it's all DK Metcalf. And then those tight ends, man, they're just splitting 3 ways, which is not good for any of them on any particular week. Now, with that, we'll move on to the next game. We got Indianapolis Colts versus the Minnesota Vikings.
And we got to remind everyone real quick. So these are Saturday games. So this week's kind of a special week, gearing up for Christmas. The NFL's got 3 games on Saturday this week. So a 1 o'clock, 4:30, and 8:15 Eastern time game. So be on the lookout for that. Saturday football, we all love that, and college
That's your
football is
lineups.
basically done. So, got 3 NFL games this week.
All right, so I'm gonna kick us off here. Like I said, the Colts versus the Vikings. I think the Vikings clinch their NFC North playoff spot in this game. I think they come out with the win. I just think that they are the superior team. I think that they can score a decent amount. They have decent targets, and unless they're going against a good defense, they usually don't have too many struggles.
Yeah, I think Minnesota wins. I don't think they blow out Indianapolis. I think that because Indianapolis is coming off of a bye with a veteran quarterback in Matt Ryan, who like straight up admit Matt Ryan hasn't looked good all year, but coming out of a bye, I think they'll fix some of their mistakes. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for Minnesota, and they just watched Minnesota's defense get shredded by the Lions. So I think that Indianapolis will score some points here, but I think Minnesota scores enough to win that game for sure.
So who do you think Minnesota has to rely on more so? Like the running game with Dalvin Cook? Do you think they have to turn to Jefferson, or do you think they use Adam Thielen like they did a lot against the Lions as well?
So to give you some context, I saw a pretty wild stat today. So Kirk Cousins, when throwing for over 300 yards in his career, is 3-5-1, which is just terrible. Like that's really bad. But it's not his fault. Like that means he had a good game, but his team's not winning. So on that stat alone, I would say a Kirk Cousins team. If you can run the ball, that's the way you want to go. Dalvin Cook's awesome. Justin Jefferson, obviously top 2 or 3 wide receiver in the NFL right now, but uh, rely on is a kind of loaded word. I think that you're going to have to use Jefferson in the passing game and Adam Thielen as well. But if Minnesota's running the ball, it's because they're winning, and so that's probably a good sign.
So yeah, some people will let's highlight for fantasy football purposes. T.J. Hawkinson, I think he's had great games since he's been with the Vikings. I think he's going to continue to have great games there. Uh, Jamar or Justin Jefferson, I think he could have some big play potential. There has been some games where they've held him out, but I don't think Indianapolis Colts can do that. And then Dalvin Cook, I'll highlight him as well. On the
Yeah,
other
and
side of the ball,
on,
I
on the
don't think
on the indie
I don't
side of
think
the
I'm going to
ball,
put too many people on Indianapolis' side.
now I'm starting. Call me crazy, but start Matt Ryan this week. I think he's a better option than a lot of guys that you normally would start over Matt Ryan. Again, coming off the bye, I expect a lot better from him, and a lot better could just be 2 or 3 touchdowns, but like a lot better from him. I'm definitely starting Michael Pittman, the wide receiver one over there. I'm going to avoid their backfield though. I think the way you beat Minnesota, especially because Minnesota's offense can score, is you got to score a bunch of points as well. I don't think Indy can do that by running. I know that Jonathan Taylor's old news by now, but I mean, I think the Indy's gonna have to throw the ball to win. So fire up Michael Pittman. Alec Pierce is a good start too if you're in deeper leagues and he's on your bench.
Yep, I think that's pretty good. We'll move on now to another Saturday night game or another Saturday game in the Baltimore Ravens versus the Cleveland Browns. What's your thoughts on this game?
Well, honestly, since Deshaun Watson's return, I mean, I, he's been terrible. Let's be honest. I bet I give a better massage than Deshaun Watson throws a football right now. So that's not saying much either. But yeah, he's been pretty bad. I think that Baltimore, their defense has really been a lot better in the last 4 weeks than they were at the beginning of the season, where they were just getting destroyed through the air. I think that because of that, Cleveland is going to have to run the ball a lot to win, but Baltimore doesn't mind because they also like to run the ball. So I think that overall this will be a relatively low scoring game because both teams are going to be just trying to run it the entire time. And I think it'll be a
Yeah, that
fast
clock's gonna
game.
die.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fast game because of that as well, but relatively low scoring. I on the Baltimore side, I'm starting J.K. Dobbins no matter what in fantasy. He looked great coming, and even though he was probably only 80% of his max health, he still looked pretty good last week. Had an awesome game. So starting J.K. Dobbins against Cleveland, who's one of the worst run defenses in the league for some reason. No reason why they should be, but they are. They're terrible. Cleveland side, Nick Chubb, he's the man. Fire him up no matter the matchup. So, but outside of the running backs, I don't feel confident in any of the wide receivers on either team. Mostly because they're all bad except Amari Cooper. So, Amari Cooper, I mean, if he's on your team, again, you're starting him if you have him. But there's better options out there this week when both teams will be running the ball.
Yes, I actually agree heavily with just about everything you said. My only concern is, so I have Chubb on a couple of my teams. and he has not performed very well in the last couple of weeks, especially in the first half. He comes out of the first half with 6 total points. What do you think is going on there, and how can Cleveland turn it around?
I think it's Deshaun Watson joining the team, and they are game planning differently. So with Jacoby Brissett, no matter who you are, you kind of know Jacoby Brissett's limited. So Cleveland stayed with their run based attack. I think that Kevin Stefanski kind of knows that this season is basically done. I mean, Cleveland's not making the playoffs. So because of that, I think he's trying to get Deshaun Watson comfortable in the offense and kind of get him going, fired up. He hadn't played football in 2 years. So I think because of that, they've been throwing the ball more, and it's been ineffective, like I said. I mean, it's been pretty terrible. So yeah, I think that that's the main reason. Also, they played a couple good defenses the last few weeks, but again, I think the main reason is because they're trying to get Deshaun Watson involved in the offense. They're throwing the ball more because of it, and they're not seeing any results.
Yeah, no, I agree. So with that, I'll ask, what's your official prediction on who wins that game?
So I actually think Cleveland wins the game. I think, call me crazy, but I think Watson accounts for at least 2 touchdowns. That's including running and throwing the ball. I think he accounts for at least 2 touchdowns, but I think Cleveland's run game keeps Baltimore off the field long enough. Tyler Huntley isn't terrible. He's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league for Baltimore because, again, Lamar Jackson's out. But I don't think that Baltimore is going to do enough to win the game. I think that Cleveland kind of just grinds out a pretty low scoring win at home.
But they're also talking about Huntley might not even be in the mix because he's going through the concussion protocol right
He
now.
is, yeah.
So keep that in mind. But I'm going to agree with you there just because of the uncertainty at quarterback right now. I don't feel safe choosing the Ravens, so I'm going to go for Browns right here too. Moving on now to Miami versus Buffalo. I think this is going to be a decent game, and I'm excited to see it. So, what do you think? I mean, Miami kind of showed us some holes in their offense this last week. Tua did not play well at all, and there's been lots of talk of is he actually a good quarterback, or is it just the fact that he's on a really good team?
Yeah, so real quick, I think this game is not going to be as exciting as most people are hoping because of the weather. So both these teams are at best throwing the ball, obviously. And right now the forecast is 20 degrees and a bunch of snow in Buffalo on an outdoor stadium. So do I think that either of these teams is really going to be airing it out with any success? Not really. Like you could have a couple big plays here and there, but I don't think that either team is going to realize their average success on the season because of the weather. And also, I mean, fun fact for you: Miami playing in LA this week, right, in an indoor stadium where it's 55 degrees, had heaters on their sideline. Okay, so what the heck are they going to do in Buffalo when it's 20 degrees and snowing outdoors, right? So yeah, not a lot of hope in Miami. The Niners kind of showed the blueprint to stopping the offense, at least stopping Tua is what it seems like, is that bump coverage on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Basically, you throw off the timing. Tua's a rhythm thrower. He likes 2 yard slants, 4 yard ins, which is all timing routes. Any of those short routes are timing routes. And so when you're bumping the receiver coming off the line, even like a foot or two, half a second of delay, it's throwing off the timing. That's why Tua's looked so bad recently. So I think Buffalo's probably going to try to do the exact same thing. Buffalo likes to play a shell defense. For those of you that aren't familiar what that means, basically you're running 2 high safeties and then your cornerback's on the outside, and you're basically begging the other team to run it straight up the middle. Miami doesn't have the workhorses in the backfield to run it straight up the middle and win the game. So I'm a little bit concerned about Miami, but Buffalo also has not looked like the world beater that they were looking like early on in the season. They've looked, I mean, better than average, but by their standards, pretty mediocre over the last 6 weeks of football. So I don't think, again, I'll reiterate, I don't think that this game is going to be as exciting as some people are expecting or hoping for it to be. I think it'll be lower scoring. So I'm taking the under. If you're a betting man, I'm going to bet the under on this game. But yeah, Jace, like, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Like, what are you expecting from this week's game?
So I agree. I think it'll be interesting because you have this Winter Storm Diaz or whatever they're calling it. I mean, Buffalo's already relocated to the Detroit Lions Stadium, nonetheless. I believe the Lions are actually home. Let me check real quick.
No,
No, Lions
Lions are in
are
New
in
York this
New
week.
York. So, I mean, do we see that happen again? I don't know.
No, no,
I
no. Both
mean,
those games will be a go. I'd really be shocked if Buffalo got moved to the Buffalo game got moved to Detroit. They're going to be playing in Buffalo.
but regardless, I do think that that is a very important factor. I mean, Jeff Wilson might be someone to consider in fantasy options. I think he's done all right. He's no flashy person by any means, and he's
He got
not getting
hurt.
you
He got
20
hurt
plus
last
points.
week, but he got hurt last week, so we don't even know if he's playing this week. A ton of injuries last week. Jeff Wilson was one of them.
Okay, so then I mean, yeah, I think they're the passing game is going to suffer as the weather gets worse, as we all know. I think that Josh Allen is versatile enough to at least recover with some of his footwork, and as you're saying, he's I, going opposite of Tua. He's more of a flexible quarterback. He can make decisions on the move. He can scramble, and I think that Buffalo is going to take the win. Partly because I think that Miami just hasn't had a good presence on the defensive end of the ball.
Yeah, that's fair. Josh Allen, his strength in the snow and in bad weather is, as Peyton Manning in the old ESPN commercial said, or Verizon commercial, I should say, laser rocket arm. That's what Josh Allen has. So when you throw it as hard as he does, the wind and the snow doesn't affect it as much. Tua obviously doesn't have the same arm strength, so I think it'll affect Tua more than it'll affect Josh Allen. But again, I think lower scoring than most people are expecting in this one. But
So who are you
but
starting?
fire. So Josh Allen's a must start regardless. But I am going to sit Tua even if he's on my team this week. I just don't think that the weather's going to be friendly enough to allow for any real production there. So
What about any of the receivers on either end of the ball? Stephon Diggs or
Stephon Diggs again, you got to fire him up if you have him. I've never liked any of the other Buffalo receivers. If you guys listened at the beginning of the season, I said avoid Gabe Davis at all costs. So if you listen to me, you're probably fortunate because he's been pretty bad all season. He's had like one or two good games out of what are we at now? Like 12, 13 games. So yeah, avoid him. But Stephon Diggs, you got to start him if you have him. Tyreek Hill, we dealt with some ankle problems last week. I think that either Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, one of the two will have a good enough game to start. I just don't know who it's going to be. So kind of coin toss that.
and I think it is going to be Jalen Waddle. I think they might be cautious with Tyreek Hill, given the concerns from last week. But that's who I would probably start on the other end of the ball. But yeah, I agree with you on that Josh Allen portion of it. So now moving on, we got Philadelphia versus Chicago. I mean, this is I don't even know if we should justify speaking towards this game. It's going to be a win for Philadelphia. I don't think Chicago has what it takes. They have shown flashes of brilliance with Justin Fields and him connecting with some other people like Cole Kmet and some other guys there. But they don't have what it takes to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. And I mean, I was tempted to pick Chicago because they're coming off a bye and Justin Fields is back in action. But um, Justin Fields, that injury he suffered, you don't usually recover 100% from in 2 weeks. It's not a devastating injury, but it's not a 2 week recovery injury on that shoulder. So I think expect him to not be at 100%. And I don't think Chicago has the talent to beat Philadelphia. So I expect Philadelphia to win pretty easily. I don't even want to talk about this game, to be honest. Kind of just
Yeah,
move on.
so
Start all the normal Philadelphia
we'll move
starters
on.
and
Another thing
move
to
on.
consider, though, is do you think weather affects them as well? And if so, could
No,
Montgomery have a good game, or would Justin Fields still be the go-to ball carrier?
no. Fields is the guy you want to own for sure in Chicago. I mean, odds are if you got David Montgomery, you're starting him because you don't have many other good running backs worth starting. So whatever. But Philadelphia, they're going to run the ball. That's the strength of the offense anyway. So fire them up.
Yep. All right, moving on now. Let's go on to Atlanta Falcons versus the New Orleans Saints. It's a divisional game, right?
Yeah, a divisional game against two teams that are trash in the NFC South. So
In a trash
Atlanta,
division.
yeah, and exactly. And Atlanta is starting Desmond Ridder, the rookie, for the first time this week. So do I expect him to do great against a relatively good New Orleans defense? No, especially not in the Superdome. Uh, I'm
or
sitting.
any of his or any of his targets, to be fair, either.
Yeah, I'm going to sit all these Atlanta guys. New Orleans, fire up Andy Dalton. He's had some awesome games, especially recently. Atlanta's defense is horrible. So give me Andy Dalton on that New Orleans side. I think New Orleans wins the game. I think they win by double digits, honestly, in this game. So give me New Orleans. And I
Yeah, I'm
hate
gonna
New
go.
Orleans. Just so everyone knows, New Orleans might be my least favorite team in the NFL, and I'm taking them by double digits.
I might also go with the Saints on this one. I will disagree with you in the sense that I don't think I'll start anybody on either team. So even Andy Dalton. I mean, if you're in a double quarterback league and you're pushing for somebody who might help you in a super flex spot, sure, I guess so. But I wouldn't take him either because he's just too volatile. It could go either way. So with that, we're going to move on to our second last game we're covering: Detroit Lions versus the New York Giants, which this is going to factor into one of our conversations happening after our little breakdown here of the Detroit Lions making the playoffs. But I think that this is actually an interesting game, and I'll start by talking because I'm obviously a Lions fan. I'm a little bit biased, but I think that the Jets have been a little bit booty cheeks recently, and I think that they might have to play Zach Wilson this week, which is not in their favor. Lions are a very high scoring team, and their defense has actually looked pretty good over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm
No, they
going with the
have
Lions
not.
winning this game.
No, the defense hasn't looked good. That's a if looking good is giving up 30 a game, then yeah, they've looked awesome, man. But
No, I
no.
actually I do think
So
that they have shown that their defense can have some decent games, but they do give up a lot of big plays as far as like, here's a 45-yard catch. So that's working against them, but their defense is looking much better than it did weeks 1 through 4.
okay, so for everyone who listened at the beginning of the year and mark it down like Chuck Barkley, guarantee, right? Well, I guarantee you that the Jets win this game. I love the Lions. For everyone who listened to me, this is like I was saying, I love the Lions. I think that they're only heading up. Their offense is awesome, but their defense is not there. And also, Jared Goff has been pretty mediocre at best outside of the dome in Detroit. So I don't expect much out of him in a poor weather game in New York in late December. I think that the Jets defense is as real as it gets, specifically their defensive backfield with Sauce Gardner there. So I don't
He'll be locking
expect,
down
yeah,
Amon Ra.
I don't expect the Lions to be able to do anything that they have been recently. As much as I like the Lions, this is not a bash on the Lions. It's me more talking up the Jets. And your boy Mike White over there has been, I mean, slinging it.
But the
So
rib
hey,
injury,
I don't give a crap, man. If Zach Wilson starts, then I'll just destroy everything I just said. But if Mike Waite starts, give me the Jets. I think the Jets
but
win.
hear me out, okay? Hear me out on this end. Lions, Jared Goff, over the last 2 games at least, but even before that too, he has been hitting every single target, both for touchdowns and just for big plays. You
Oh,
have
was he doing that in New
five,
York in
you
late
have
December
five,
outdoors?
6, 7 different receivers who are
So
doing
in New York
phenomenal.
outdoors in late December, who's doing
Okay,
all
so
that?
that might be the hiccup, but I mean,
Okay,
come on, dude. As
might
far as
be the hiccup.
if you're relying on both teams' run offenses, I'm giving that to the Lions. DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, Craig Reynolds, even, and freaking Jackson back in the backfield. That's 4 good running backs they have who they can always use on rotation. Their only weak point is they can't use a quarterback to run at all because Jared Goff has the same legs as a freaking toddler. So I don't think he's gaining any yards on the ground.
Listen. Jared Goff having good games, right? Jared Goff having good games is like being intimate with your wife. You can't do it outside. Okay. So I don't expect Jared Goff to do anything outside the dome, especially not again in New York in late December. So
Well, we'll see.
you take the Lions. I'm cheering for the Lions, but they're not going to
Gentleman's
win.
wager right here. You've given it to the Jets. I've given it to the Lions. In our
Yep.
next video, when we see the outcome, the loser has to say, "Hey, winner, you were right. I was wrong," and that's gonna be the gentleman's wager.
Yeah, and then you also owe me a chocolate bar after you
All
lose.
right,
So
I'll get you one of those freaking trash chocolate bars, like a.
do whatever you want, man. Chocolate's chocolate.
All right, all right. We'll move on now to our last game we're covering, and then we'll cover the next 8 games in our next video. We just want to try to keep things under wraps and try to keep the time relatively short. So we got Pittsburgh Steelers versus your Carolina Panthers. I'll let you kick it off since I talked about my Lions last.
Yeah, give me the Panthers to win this game. I don't know if anyone outside of Carolina has followed the Panthers at all. Obviously, I have my favorite team. So Matt Rule was like the worst coach, I don't know, maybe ever. He's like the North American Free Trade Agreement. This is maybe the worst deal in the history of deals, maybe ever. Yeah, Matt Rule. That's him right there. He was horrible as soon as he got fired. Steve Wilkes, who I think is a little too conservative for my liking as a head coach. Nevertheless, he's been very good culture wise for Carolina. They're 4-4 since he took over. Their only losses are to good teams. I think that Steve Wilkes has done a great job of turning that team around. The Steelers, especially if Kenny Pickett doesn't play, and Mitch Trubisky, who just loves to throw the ball to the other team as much as he likes to throw it to his own team, is playing. I think that Carolina's defense feasts. They've been playing fantastic lately, and Carolina's going to run the ball down their throat. So give me Carolina at Bank America. They're going to win, and I think they win going away here. I have no faith in Sam Darnold either, so don't think that that's because of him. The
So
defense and the run game is going to win it.
I'm gonna dissent in my opinion, only because I think Carolina is absolute cheeks and just trash. So I'm gonna give it to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't really have much evidence to say that they're gonna win, so it's not a strong thing that I'm saying here. But also in this game, I don't know if I'm gonna start anybody from either of these teams in fantasy football. Um, do you think so? Like
Well,
DJ
okay,
Moore, maybe, but
real
no.
quick, if you have Pat Fryermuth as your tight end, you're definitely starting him regardless.
Okay, yeah,
Carolina's
I'll agree
Carolina's
there.
weakest spot of their defense is their linebacking core. No matter like just straight up, it is. And Pat Fryermuth is top five tight end in the NFL, so you're starting him no matter what if you have him. Um, Outside of that, on the Steelers side, I wouldn't start anyone. They're especially again if Pickett doesn't play, then definitely don't start anyone. Um, Heck no. But
Najee Harris has been horrible this year.
Carolina side, call me crazy, but I'm actually starting Sam Darnold in a couple of my Superflex leagues this week because that's the best option I got. Sam Darnold is okay enough running that he gets you some points on that end. And he hasn't been turning the ball over since he's got the starting job here in Carolina. So that's a kind of a key to their success. But again, as shocking as it may sound, Carolina right now is 6-8, and they control their own destiny. So if they win out, sorry, they're 5-8. My bad. Yikes. They're 5-8. But if they win out their next four games, no matter what, they make the playoffs because they'll win their division. They're one game back of Tampa right now, and they have the tiebreaker, and they play Tampa Bay later in the season. So if they win out, which I think they can and they will, then they're going to make the playoffs. Which I mean, I didn't know if I wanted to make the playoffs or get a good quarterback, but I'll take playoffs, man. Like Carolina, Bank of America Stadium, this game. If they win this game, they're making the playoffs.
All right.
Guaranteed.
So speaking of only because they're in a horrible division, which is
Oh
oh
yeah,
man,
100%. That's
that's just,
exactly why.
that's just not good. Anyways, speaking of playoffs, we're gonna move on to our next segment where we are gonna break down. I've seen a lot of hype, and it might be because that's what Google sees me looking up as the Detroit Lions. So I've been seeing tons of hype surrounding the Detroit Lions. And with that, I want to see how likely they are to make the playoffs because that's every single article I've been seeing recently. Anything that concerns Lions, it says what's their odds of making the playoffs. So looking at the NFC, who they currently have in the standings is you have Eagles who have already clinched a spot in the NFC, and then the remaining six spots currently are going to the Vikings, the Niners, and the Buccaneers. Kion already talked about possibly Tampa Bay not making it there. But then you have the Cowboys in at 10-3. You have the Commanders at 7-5-1, and you have the Giants at 7-5-1. And then on the bubble, you have the Seahawks at 7-6, and the Lions at 6-7.
Okay, let me break down for everyone listening. Okay, Eagles, like Jay said, clinched already. The Cowboys are making the playoffs no matter what because their record's good enough. I don't like they're not going to lose out, so the
Yep.
Cowboys are going to make it no matter what. The Niners are going to win that division. I'm not even a little bit worried about that. The Vikings going to win
Vikings.
their division. Not worried about that. Those teams will probably clinch this week. So really, there's four teams fighting for two spots in the playoffs right now. Okay, you get the Washington Commanders, the New York Giants, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Detroit Lions. Those are the four teams fighting
With
for
Detroit Lions being last
yeah
of the
being
bunch.
last. So right now, Washington and the Giants hold those 6 and 7 seeds in the NFC. If I had to tell you who I think makes the playoffs right now, I think for sure one of those NFC East teams, either the Giants or Washington, falls out. And if I had to guess, it's the Giants. They're not going to make the playoffs. They've looked horrible. I think they started what like 6-1, and now they're 7-6-1. Just terrible lately. So yeah, I think the Giants fall out. I think Washington sneaks in. I think they're tie. Their team's 7-5 right now, 7-5-1 right now. I think that tie ends up getting them into the playoffs. But I think the Giants fall out, which means you got to choose between Seattle and Detroit for who you think gets that last spot. And right now, Detroit's one game back on Seattle. So if I had to choose, I would think that honestly, Detroit is going to sneak in. I think that
I
I think that Detroit's if they win this week, I should say. So if Detroit can beat the Jets in New York, I think that Detroit sneaks into the playoffs. I really do. I think they'll take that 7 seed, but it's all come down to this game. And if they don't, then I think Seattle is the team that makes it in. But I think the Giants aren't making it. What do you think?
No, so I actually agree with you. Exactly the same thoughts. I think the Lions. could potentially win out. The only twist I'd say though is that even if the Lions go 3-1, that means that Seattle would have to lose 2 games, and I think that's totally doable. Now the Lions, I heard on an article recently, or I guess read on an article recently that their schedule is ranked about the fifth easiest for the remainder of their games. And again, very high scoring offense. It all depends on what the defense allows, gives up. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to give up points regardless, but can Jared Goff tie it together? Can the Lions bring it? Can the run game come? Can all the receivers be clicking? They've had a decent. First off, I was going to say something about the receivers with Panay Sewell. Did you see his catch to help
Yeah.
clinch that
Yes,
first
I
down?
did. The big
So
man.
hopefully they keep getting him the ball because what a hoss. But I definitely think that they're able to sneak in. Now, again, speaking as Kayana did at the beginning of the season, I did say I think that the Lions are right on the cusp of playoffs this year, and here we are talking about them being on the cusp. One loss could get them out of the playoffs. One win could get them into the playoffs. But I'm excited for next year only because given the team and the excitement built around them, the coaching staff, and the positive report that's been coming out of there, I think that people are going to be willing to go to Detroit Lions now. Unlike Robert Gronkowski back in the day, who said he was going to retire because he didn't want to go to the Lions. And then let's add on top of that that they have the Rams pick for next year, which could very well be a top 3 pick and looks like it might be a top 3 pick. So they could just, again, fuel their rebuild and keep it going. Now, whether they invest in a quarterback, that's another story. I think they should.
They said they
Even if you
won't. They said that
Jared
Jared
Goff.
Goff is who they're sticking it out with. I don't blame him actually. I think Jared Goff got a lot too much heat when he was in LA. Undeserved heat. I think there was some criticism you could levy on him, but I think he got too much. To speak to your Detroit being a desirable destination, uh, if you like, I don't know, blood diamonds and gang violence, then Detroit's probably the place you want to be. But and not because the team, the football team, I think is like I said, looking up. They have great potential and they have good space in the cap that they can fit guys in. But I don't think that Detroit is ever going to be a desirable city unless we can rewind 100 years
No,
to when it was like
no, definitely not. So
actually
I
a
wasn't
nice
talking
city.
about the
So
city. Wasn't talking about the city. Was talking about the team because yeah, Detroit. I mean, I'm a Detroit fan, diehard, and I don't even know if I want to go to one of their home games. I kind of want to just go to one of their away games and support them there.
yeah, but so yeah, I guess we're both in agreement. We'll hop on over to the AFC. Look